Welcome to SDHC's Health and Wellbeing podcast. Before we begin, we want to emphasise that the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date content, it is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your doctor or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Remember, your health and well-being are invaluable, so prioritise consulting with a medical professional for your personalised care. Hi everybody, you're listening to the Health and Wellbeing podcast from South Downs Health and Care with your host Dr Nick Harvey. The purpose of this show is to help people understand how they can help themselves and others with their health and well-being. Every episode, I interview an expert to understand the latest evidence and advice on how to improve your own health or help others. This month, I welcome Reeta Minhas-Judd to discuss a crucial topic, the importance and awareness of mental health. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Nick.
So Reeta founded RMJ Wellbeing in January 2019 and has been dedicated to enhancing individual and collective wellbeing ever since. Initially focusing on bespoke customer service training and NLP life therapy, Reeta has expanded RMJ Wellbeing to include wellbeing retreats and public guest speaking services. Her work has earned accolades including the Counselling Service of the Year award with the London and South East England Prestige Awards and a finalist spot in the Eastbourne Business Awards. Additionally, Reeta has authored her first book, Brown and Proud. It chronicles her family's experience with racism in a Western society, offering both poignant and humorous reflections. The book's available on Amazon, and we'll link to it too, Reeta.
Yeah.
So you've been up to a lot. I like to find out a little bit more about you in this podcast, really, before delving into how you help others, to understand how you help yourself, really. So you're up to a lot, and tell me a bit more.
Right. So basically, I was bred and born in Kent. I went to obviously primary school, which was fine. Problems really started mental health wise in my secondary school because I was racially bullied for the whole of the 6 years that I was there. Never dealt with it, Nick. Innocently thought, you know what, as soon as I leave school, things will be fine, things will get better, and they didn't. And my mental health really deteriorated because of it. It was the bullying. I didn't tell anybody about the bullying. I didn't speak to my mum and dad. I didn't speak to family members because I felt ashamed. So I just, suppressed it, kept it within, and I just thought, you know what, I'll be fine. But I was just very angry with the world and for the injustice of why it happened to me rather than anybody else. So my ethos of my company was to ensure that nobody else went through what I went through, and that there is someone out there that you can talk to that can help you to live your best life.
Yeah. I mean, how did you find that within yourself? Because it sounds like quite a lonely journey.
Yeah, it was. Because the thing is, being Asian as well, we don't really tend to talk about emotions and feelings. Mum and dad, they were always around there to support us, but it was more about get you educated, feed you, clothe you, the vital things they were more interested in doing. But the emotional side of it, I never really got. So for me, it was just like, well, maybe this is life. Maybe, I didn't believe in mental health up to that point. I was very much like, mum and dad have taught me, if you've got a problem, you deal with it, get on with it and move on. So that's the way I was, my perception was, things will only get better when you're out of the crisis area, but it didn't. And I, as I said, I was just very unhappy, lack of confidence, lack of self-worth, wasn't very good at making friends, always the shy one. And it just knocked me completely.
Mm-hmm. And tell me a bit about your parents, because they must have had a journey of their own.
Yeah, they did. Obviously, they came over from India in the 50s and sort of brought over my elder sister who was born out there, and then sort of found a house here in the UK along with other families. And there was, at one stage, there was like 8 families living in one house sort of thing. And basically, my mum and dad just sort of like worked all the hours God sends just to put a roof over our head. And we were there for a few years, I think till I was about 3 or 4. And then there was a brick put through the window and my dad said, right, it's time to move. So then we moved sort of about 2 or 3 miles up the road sort of thing. And again, my mum and dad's, main priority was to get our children educated, to get them fed, watered, and, again, doing all the natural things that you would do as a parent. But the emotional side of it, wasn't really there. And it was purely because their upbringing was very much about survival. So for them, it wasn't a necessity to say, how are you? How's your day at school? How are things? How are you feeling? And all the rest of it. It was more about, I want to make sure that the bills are paid and you guys get educated and you're fed and you're watered and you're looked after in a more practical way than an emotional way.
And it sounds like they were almost quite tolerant, almost in the sense that you had a brick put through your window and you moved rather than fought that. Is that?
Yeah, it was just very much because the racism side of it, where we were living was quite sort of rough, if I'm honest. And it was a case that my dad wanted us to be safe and all the rest of it. So it was just like, right, we can't stay here. We're going to have to move. So where we moved to in Dartford, this is the irony of it. We were the first Asian family to move down the road, and our next door neighbours that were white didn't speak to us for years because they just couldn't believe that, Asians had moved into their road. And then there used to be a guy living opposite us, and to this day, he's never spoken to us. And when he sees anybody Asian, he just crosses the road. So it's still prevalent, but unfortunately, you just have to move on with life and just sort of get on with it. And that's, as I said, that we moved to Dartford, and it was a safer environment. And again, Mum and Dad worked all the hours God sends because there was 5 of us, so there was a lot of feeding to do and looking after us and all the rest of it. So we just had to sort of cope as much as we possibly could ourselves.
So feels like a way for you as somebody who is Asian or Asian heritage has to be just to kind of accept this racism that's there.
Unfortunately, yeah, I just, it was never done to my face, Nick. It was always done as I was walking into a room, or I was sort of walking out of a classroom, or, it was like, oh, smelly packy or curry girl or something like that. So it was always never done in front of me. It was always done as you were walking through and stuff like that. And I just was like, it is what it is, because I was only one of 5 Asian girls in the whole school. And, it knocked my confidence naturally. And I was just like, Reeta, don't tolerate it. Don't tolerate it, but just ignore it and, don't confront it. Just, it will go away. It will go away. And my innocence was that as soon as I finished school, everything would just go back to normal and I'd be all right again. But it clearly didn't, because it impacted on me that much.
Frightening. It's something that's really hard to actually understand as a white person. I heard a quote once that you're not, unless you actively fight racism, you are racist. And, I feel that's true. So what can somebody like myself do to actively fight racism?
It's a tough one, really. I think everybody's inbred with it because, of everything that goes on in the world. But it's just about being kind to people, irrelevant of what colour you are, creed or nationality or race. It should just be about being, not judging somebody for the colour of their skin, for their nationality, for their religion. It should, with all due respect, when I was coming here today, I didn't think, oh, I'm recording a podcast with Nick because he's white. I just see you as Nick. My husband's white. So, it doesn't bother me, race at all. But what upsets me is that the damage it did to me when I was a kid. Because all I wanted, I'll be honest with you, I wanted to actually be white when I was a kid. When I was going through it, I just thought if I was white, then I'd be accepted and everything would be all right. But obviously that's the innocence of the child, isn't it? But now I just see it as, I see there's good and bad in every race, irrelevant of who you are. And I don't judge somebody by the colour of their skin. I judge them as the person that they are. If they're a nice person, I want to be around them. If they're not a nice person, I'll keep my distance.
Thank you for those insights. And so from that has bred somebody who's really quite resilient and has a strong desire to help other people who have, I guess, those feelings of not being good enough. Is that right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, as I said to you earlier, it really has left its mark on me. But the resilient side of me says I'm not gonna allow it to define me as a person. So I wouldn't now say to people, right, okay, I can't do this because I was bullied, or I can't do that. yes, it happened, but in some ways now I can thank those girls that did that to me, because now I'm able to help other people. So I've turned the negative into a positive. So now I'm out there to help anybody with their mental health. And I don't want people to go through what I endured. I want them to know that there is an outlet. There is someone out there that actually wants to help you and get over whatever you've been through.
Mm. And you're really describing this transition in yourself to a kind of a growth mindset.
Oh, yeah.
So what were the things that helped you turn around into having a growth mindset?
Well, my sister-in-law that married my brother was a therapist, and she has been saying to me for years, Rita, you really need to do NLP. You really need to do NLP. And I was like, yeah. But my mindset previously was very much, there is no such thing as mental health. If you've got a problem, you just deal with it and get on with life. And that was obviously my mum and dad's upbringing, that have obviously, if you've got issues in your life, just deal with it, move on and just wipe it away. And so I finally, I sort of gave into it, and I said, okay, I'll go on this weekend course. And I did this weekend course, and it really opened my mind. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And NLP is basically changing your mindset into a more positive state. So it's about looking at what you've got and turning it and reframing it into something more positive. So then I went on to do the practitioner, then went on to do the master practitioner, and I also did a coaching qualification. And that just obviously just changed my mind. That it absolutely just shifted my mindset from what I was thinking previously to what I think now.
Fascinating. So it took you to do the course to become a therapist to actually change your mindset.
Absolutely, it did, yeah. And as I said, my sister-in-law would say to me, Rita, you're so angry. You're not in a good place. And I was like, oh, I'm fine. But I wasn't. I was nowhere near fine. Mm-hmm. But that, as I said, was because of what had happened in my childhood.
And so the heart of this is almost someone being brutally honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. As I say to clients, if you want to live your best life, you can lead a horse to water. You can't force them to drink it. You have to be brutally honest, and you have to bare your soul to me in order for me to get you to where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard journey for some people, Nick. Some people will just like, I can't do it because they're not ready for it, or they just want to keep it buried, or they just think, if I suppress it, it'll all go away. But unfortunately, it doesn't. It's still there underlying.
Mm. So you felt really quite on your own, it feels, when you were younger and had a lot of insecurities, not surprisingly. I think most people feel quite alone when they're thinking about how they feel and how they deal with their problems. How common is it, though? Should we feel alone?
So many people do. And that's the heartbreaking thing about it, that people are going through so much, but they're still thinking they're absolutely fine, and they're far from fine. But rather than deal with it and actually say, do you know what, I have got an issue, it's easier to just reverse that and just say, no, I'm absolutely fine. Because I've now got to the stage where I can see somebody and I can pick up on it straight away that they're not in a good place. But as I said to you earlier, you can lead a horse to water. You can't force them to drink it. I can't drag those people into my office and say, you will talk to me, because if they are bought in through durance and they don't really want to do it, then they're not going to open up to you, or they're going to tell you very limited amount of information. You want them to be able to come to you and say, right, this is how I'm feeling. I've gone through this, and this. How can we move forward with it? And it is a hard journey to do, Nick. For some people, it's a real, you've got to have some real courage and strength to actually come and sit in front of me and bare your soul to me.
Yeah, courage and strength. And I suppose choosing the right time.
Absolutely. And the right therapist. You have to talk to somebody that you truly believe will be able to help you. Otherwise, there's no point. I read somewhere the other day that you have to, on average, go through 8 therapists to get to the one that you actually are comfortable with. Because you're bearing your soul. You're telling them everything, your intimate details about your life. So if you've got somebody in the room with you that isn't focused on you, or isn't really interested in what you're saying, or you're not feeling that they're helping you, or they're feeling empathetic, you're going to walk away and you're just going to end up shutting down. The
tricky thing in that situation, I find, as a GP, is often that then rules out in somebody's mind that therapy will help them as well, isn't it? I've tried it once or twice. It was awful.
I have that so many times. I have clients that come to me and go to me, right, okay, let's go for this sort of thing. And they're so surprised because I'm not a normal therapist. I won't sit there and ask the question, so how does that make you feel? I will literally listen to your story. I will tell you what your trigger points are. I will tell you why you are behaving in the way that you're behaving and how I can move you forward with it. I don't believe in starting in the here and now, moving you forward. I believe in taking you back to your past, dealing with your past in order for you to face your present and your future.
And that works really well for some. And maybe isn't right for others.
Well, that's another reason why I offer the free complimentary 90-minute therapy session, because it doesn't always work for some people. Some people you will find they will do the 90 minutes and then they'll say, Rita, thank you so much, but I'm not ready for it right now. And you know what? I take my hat off to those people because they genuinely know in their heart of hearts that it's not ready for them. A couple of months down the line, they're in contact and they say, now I'm ready to do it. Whereas at that period of time, I wasn't, because there was so much going on and it was too overwhelming for me to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And as I said, that's why I offer that, because I think that's somebody's opportunity to even offload, Nick, even if they just get 90 minutes to be able to say, this is how I'm feeling.
I think as a society, we don't get that much opportunity, do we?
No.
Just to have a cathartic conversation.
Absolutely. I had a client say to me when I offered him the free 90 minutes, he said to me, this is the first time that someone's actually ever listened to me. Mm. And that's heartbreaking to hear. Mm. He had a story to tell like everybody does, but it was just a case of no one had ever actually sat down with him and said to him, right, let's have a chat. Let's talk about what's going on with you. Mm. And sometimes you just need that. Sometimes you just need someone to just listen to you and say, not even say anything, but just allow you to hear your own voice.
I think when people feel listened to, they're also more likely to hear the advice as well, aren't they? Because they know it's framed on a true understanding of them.
I agree. Very, very much so.
I think that's where it frustrates me as well in general practice, is that, that time is our biggest asset, isn't it? And actually, if it's thin, it becomes very difficult sometimes to help people truly, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because I think sometimes people go through that stage in their life where they think, yeah, I'm absolutely fine. And they know deep down they're not. But again, it's the fear of, right, who do I open up to? Do I go to my GP? Do I speak to my wife? Do I speak to my husband? Do I speak to friends or family? And I always encourage speaking to other people. But unfortunately, when it comes to family, the family are emotionally connected to you. So 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. Whereas when you go and see a therapist, they're not emotionally attached. I'm not emotionally attached to any of them. So for me, it's like a clear canvas. So I'm able to tell them what I hear.
Mm-hmm. I can hear that. Yeah, you can be brutally honest.
I do. And I think sometimes that's what people want to hear. I mean, I could sort of like flower it up for them, but I think sometimes, me personally, if I was going to see a therapist, I want them to be able to tell me what I need to do in order for me to live my best life. I don't want them saying, oh, I totally understand, or I know how that makes you feel, because that's not what I want to hear. I want resolution. I want answers as to what I need to do in order to get to where I need to get to.
So you mentioned that phrase, living your best life. What does that mean to you, and why is it such an important topic to you?
Because I think that we only have one life, and I think everyone should be living it the best. I think that, there's so many resources out in the world now that nobody should generally have to be unhappy. If, everyone has the odd day where they don't feel great and all the rest of it, but when someone's living an unhappy life for such a prolonged period of time, I question that as to why. Why aren't you going out there and sourcing help? This isn't a rehearsal. We're only here one time. So everyone should be able to live your best life and be able to, be happy. And, if you've got issues, if you've got concerns, there's people out there that can help you. It's whether you want that help or not. Mm. If you don't want the help, that's absolutely fine. But don't sit there and moan about it. Years ago, there wasn't a lot of resources and people were struggling and all the rest of it. Whereas in this day and age, there is so much help out there. I mean, even using me as an example, I offer online, walk and talk, and in person, and you get a free 90-minute therapy session out of one of those three choices. So it does really, really niggle me when people say, oh, well, there's no help out there. Well, I'm offering you three options, a free 90 minutes. We can go, if you don't want to be in an office environment, we'll do the walk and talk. If you don't want to leave your house, we'll do online. So, there's always options out there. It's about looking at your own mindset and saying, how much do you want to change? Because some people are happy being unhappy. And it becomes a habit. And as humans, because we're habitual, it's just easier to remain unhappy than it is to actually make the effort to want to be happy.
There's always a cost to change.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've got to want it.
So for listeners who might be dealing with mental health challenges, what's the kind of one key message that you'd like them to take away from our discussions?
I always believe that if you're not feeling in a great place for at least a couple of weeks, go and see Dr. Nick here. Go and see your GP and have a chat with them and say, look, I've not been feeling right for a couple of weeks. Then obviously, whichever path you have to send them down, you send them down. I think that if you're not feeling in a great place, do something about it. That would be my first point of call, whether it be going to see a GP like yourself, whether it be going to speak to a friend, whether it be speaking to a family member, going to look for a counsellor, a therapist. Do something about it. Don't sit with it and think it's okay. Because after a couple of weeks, it's just going to start spiraling. So after that point, if you feel that you're still not in a good place, do a course of action.
Talk about it. And I think actually it was interesting listening to you because people go, well, I can't get to see my GP, can I? And that's true. It's really tough. But more and more you can get direct access to mental health practitioners too, can't you? So ask your surgery about how you're getting straight in touch with them even, isn't it? Absolutely, to talk to somebody. And I'm intrigued. I was going to ask you about what, say, organisations and educational institutions can do, but I'm going to zoom out a little bit because it fascinates me that you come from your parents came from an Indian community where they don't talk much to a British one where maybe you talk a bit, but we're pretty crap, aren't we? And then if you look at, say, the Americans, I think there's a lot more embedded in their society, isn't there?
Yeah.
So what do you think our society should do as a whole to improve?
Well, in America, if you're not seeing a therapist, you're the abnormal one. There, it's just all across the board. Everyone's seeing a therapist. Whereas here in the UK, we are a bit stiff upper lip and we are a bit sort of like reserved. But there's also, I hate to say it, but there is also still this stigma attached to mental health. If you're seeing a therapist, what's the matter with you? You're mad or something? That sort of response, So there is a small minority of people that don't believe in it and just think, I'll just get on with it. It's part of life, especially the older generation up to a point. I've had elderly clients that have come to see me in their 80s because, their friends have said to them, oh, you don't need to see anybody. Don't worry about it. You'll be absolutely fine. We went through the war. We did this, we did that. Or again, the stiff upper lip. But I just think that, open your mind to it. There's people out there, if you're not in a good place, there's, talk to somebody about it. Even if you don't agree with it, allow others, encourage others if that's what they choose that they want to do. But as I said, in this country, we are still a bit reserved when it comes to mental health.
I think coaching can be really valuable, don't you?
Very much so.
Should you wait till you're even unwell, have that other person?
Yeah, absolutely.
To help you with your thought processes.
Yeah, because that's what I do with some clients now. They've done the emotive journey with me, so I now do the coaching side of it with them. So this is where they learn their self-confidence. It's more about skills rather than the emotive side of it. But coaching, 100%, I would agree with that. I think, go and speak to somebody who you feel might be of benefit to you. Or, the internet these days, there's so much on the internet as well. I mean, since COVID, obviously mental health has become a lot more prominent. And that's, you know, it's from a sad situation that we've got something positive out of it with regards to the mental health. So it is being highlighted that much more. But unfortunately, there is still a reservation for it.
Mm-hmm. So I know you do some work with some companies in terms of workplace health and wellbeing.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about that and what role can the organisations play in promoting mental health?
So what I do is I go into organisations and I offer my services with regards to, for two aspects really. One is to talk to anybody that wants to talk to me for a mental health consultation with regards to therapy. And the other option I do is I offer wellbeing talks, which is normally a room of like 4 members of staff for myself. And it's a generic talk about mental health, about how to support your mental health, how to support your colleagues' mental health, what sort of things to look out for, you know, how are they coping since COVID? So if you've got a member of staff that's normally always punctual, always on time, and then all of a sudden they're starting to come in a bit late, or they're coming in a bit disheveled, or they're coming in and they're making mistakes in the office and stuff like that. You know, have a one-to-one to them, have a chat with them, rather than saying, right, you're making mistakes, you're doing this, da-da-da-da-da. Why not go down the route of the empathetic route and find out why they're feeling like that? You know, ask them, how are you feeling today? You okay? Because most people don't even get asked that. And that's quite a pivotal question to ask, because that way it might sort of trigger something in somebody to say, oh, do you know what? Actually, yeah, I'm not in a great place today because... So it's more about supporting your staff. And I'm a mental health first aider as well. So obviously that was the thing that led me to work for companies and bits and pieces like that. But it's about making people aware. When you're, you know, when you're at work, obviously everyone's very, like yourself, you're very busy, you're seeing patients and all the rest of it. So you don't always have that time to be able to check in on all your members of staff to make sure that everyone's okay. So if someone's not in a great place, that's where I just come in. And then it's very discreetly done. So it's not as if someone sits there and you say, right, you have to contact Rita. It's a case of like, my cards are there or my leaflets are there. If you've got an issue, go and have a chat with her. And the wellbeing talks work well because what you do is you're not actually fixating on any particular person. So if there is somebody within that room that is struggling with their mental health, they have the opportunity at the end of that session to be able to either take my card or say, look, can I have a quick chat with you? So it's done very discreetly. So it's not a case of like you know, in your morning meeting will say, oh, right, okay, so you over there, Jane, I see that you're seeing Rita because I understand you've got mental health concern. Do you know what I mean? It's done more discreetly and tactfully. So that way people can do their own thing with me and it doesn't intervene with anything to do with work.
And so if you were in a room with, I don't know, about 20 employees, what sort of number might come forward?
You never know, really. Sometimes, I mean, I did a men and mental health presentation at the Eastbourne Borough Football Club, and I did it in a room full of like 20, 25 youngsters, and it was the first team players, and a lot of them took my card. A few of them have contacted me, but a lot of them took my card. And I again, it goes back to the stigma. Oh, you know, men are supposed to be men, aren't they? They're not supposed to have mental health concerns and all the rest of it. And the irony is I've now got more male clients than female. So, you know, I think everyone at some stage in their life will have some mental health concerns. And you know what? It's nothing to be ashamed about. We're only human. We all go through good days. We go through bad days. But if it's a prolonged time that you're going through it, talk to somebody.
In terms of organisations, have you got any tips in terms of the sort of things that you could do to bring how people are feeling to the fore? So, for example, I've come across one organisation that when you come in, you put a smiley face or whatever on the board where you've checked in. Another, we do that where in a meeting, we'll go around, just do a quick check-in, 0 to 10, how you doing, and follow up. Have you got any other tips? Because I think there are some great ones out there, I suspect, that I haven't come across.
The check-in one is a good one. Even if when you're with members of staff, if you pick up on something on a particular member of staff, like I mentioned earlier, if someone who's always punctual is starting to come in late, or you've noticed that somebody is not being themselves or they're making silly mistakes at work and stuff like that, have a one-to-one with them. And you don't have to make it official. You don't have to say, right, you've got to come in my office and all the rest of it. Say, do you want to go for a coffee after work tonight? Or do you want to just have a chat? should we go and get some lunch together or something like that? Because sometimes it might just be that they're having a bad day, or that there's something going on at home that's obviously impacting on their mental health during the day. So they're so fixated on that they're not concentrating. It's about just being empathetic, and it's about just checking in with people and just making sure that, your team are okay, and, and an open door policy as well. Just saying to all your staff, whenever you sort of have your morning meetings or your regular get-togethers, guys, if anybody has got any concerns, my door is always open to them. And, my phone is always on. If you want to have a chat, if there's something on your mind, I'm here. If it's something that I can't help you with, I will refer you to somebody else.
Empathy. You used that word empathy again. And that's actually one of our core values at SDHC, but it's actually so difficult in the moment, isn't it? I find myself as a human, typically if somebody's late or something, thinking, oh, that's not good enough, rather than actually thinking, oh, they're okay. Should we have a word of notice you're late? Is everything okay?
Yeah. And it takes 2 minutes to do that. You're acknowledging the fact that they've been late, and they know that you've been late, but you're not having a go at them. Because if it's a regular thing, if it's somebody doing it every day, then obviously you have to have another course of action. But if it's somebody that's doing it on the one-off occasion, and you were expecting them in at, say, 10 o'clock and they rock up at 10:30, then have a conversation and say, is everything all right? Because that way it lets them know, oh, do you know what? Nick actually cares. He was interested in why I wasn't here on time today. Whereas if they just rock up and just do whatever they're doing and they're not in a good place, that could cause resentment within them as well, because they might start thinking, do you know what? My employer doesn't even care about me. He can see that I'm unhappy. I'm not, really focusing on work, and he's not really shown any interest. I think it's always about just checking in with people and just giving them knowing, for them to know that you're there for them. Another thing that I do with these wellbeing retreats, which you mentioned earlier, some of the companies that I work for, they send a member of their staff as a reward to the retreat. So in my eyes, if my boss said to me, oh, Rita, just to let you know, I'm going to put you on a retreat for the day, I would think, oh my God, you know what? Even subconsciously, I'll be thinking, oh, do you know what? My employer really cares that much. He's really invested in me, that he's actually going to put me forward for a retreat or whatever the reward is going to be. And it's all about managing that. And obviously the expectation from a member of staff is that, oh, my boss does care about me. And that is when you'll get the best out of your employees as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We just get caught in the hurry of life, don't we?
We sometimes
do. So we've talked a lot about habits. We're habitual people, aren't we? Humans are habitual, whether we like to admit it or not. The habit of talking about how you're feeling is probably an important one that I've picked up from this conversation.
Yeah.
Any other habits that you think people would benefit from?
Exercise. Funny enough, I had a client yesterday who said to me, oh, Rita, what can I do to distract myself? There's whether your diet, what you're eating, checking in with, as I said, a medical practitioner if you feel that that's something you want to do, meditation, relaxation, yoga, Pilates. There's so many things out there. It's what I was saying to you earlier, Nick. There's so many resources out there now. I defy anybody say to me, well, I can't find something that will make me feel better. There is always something out there that you can go and try that will lift your mood somewhere or another. Like clients say to me, Rita, I'm feeling anxious because I'm at home. We'll walk into another room. By the time you've walked into another room, it's distracted you. Even for a couple of seconds, it's distracted you. People will say, oh, well, I can't afford to join these clubs and stuff. Go for a walk. Going for a walk is one of the best things that you can do. Number one, it's good for your health. And number two, it's good for your mindset because it gets you out the house and it gets you a chance to see other surroundings and to reflect on things in a different area, in a different, on the outdoors.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think people get stuck in a mindset of thinking about how they get better, but that actually is like saying, like, clear your mind. You can't, because then you're thinking about clearing your mind.
Yeah.
But if you actually focus on something,
yes,
that's how you get that next step.
Yeah. For me, it's watching Friends on the telly. If I've had a heavy day with clients, I'll put Friends on and I've watched it 1,000 times to the point I can actually tell you their script. I can tell you what their next line is. My husband will walk through and he'll go, "Didn't you watch that episode yesterday?" And I'll go, "This is what they're going to say next." And I'll say the line and he'll go, "Oh my God, you're watching it, but you know what they're going to say." And I said, "Do you know what? It's my way of escapism." And I'd watch it and it still makes me laugh, but it's my outlet. It's the one thing that I like to do. And it just chills me out. Playing with my dog, going to football with my husband. There's always outlets out there. Some are obviously more expensive than others, but going for a walk in the park costs nothing.
I've taken a long time to understand in myself what I need. So I often find that thinking, oh, well, I've got my wife, my children, I'm always at work, I should be with them, but I kind of need the space to go for a run or something, a walk. And actually being kind to yourself and just admitting, but you need it. It's really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely. You've got to invest time in yourself, Nick, because even though that you're a husband and you're a father, you're still Nick and you still need to top yourself up, because otherwise you're no good to your wife and your children. If you're not in a good place yourself, how are you supposed to support others? So everyone needs time out for themselves, whether it be going for a walk, whether it be going for, going for a run, whatever it is that you want to do. You have to be selfish sometimes and invest time in yourself. And that's the way other people will get the best out of you, because you'll be replenishing yourself in order to help others.
And it's fundamentally, when you put it like that, it's not being selfish.
No,
actually.
not at all. Absolutely it's not, because everyone else will get the benefit of it. If you were to work 24/7, right, how is your wife and your children going to feel about that? They will be resentful that they're not getting to see Daddy and my husband, but ultimately you're not happy in yourself because all you're doing is throwing yourself into work. So where's the outlet for you? They're thinking, oh, you're out of the house and you must be having fun, but you're busy seeing patients 24/7. And obviously they're being neglected. So it's an unhappy ship for everybody. Whereas you invest time in yourself, you invest time in the family, it's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's a really interesting one. I think that a lot of people get caught up on.
Yeah, very much so. But you do have to be selfish and invest in yourself before you can invest in others.
So you mentioned a few of the things that you do. So you go for your walk, you watch your friends. Yeah. Are there any other things that you personally incorporate in terms of practices into your daily routine and approach to life?
Yeah. The dog is one. We've got a dog a rescue from Battersea, and she is just adorable, and she's such a lovely little thing. So I spend a lot of time with her, investing time. It is like having a child with her, because obviously she has 3 walks a day. She's fed 4 times. You have to make sure that she's watered. She's groomed, her teeth are brushed. So it's like having a child. So she takes up a lot of my day when I'm not seeing clients. As I said, I enjoy going to the football. I'm a Chelsea fan. Sorry for those who aren't. So I go with my husband quite a lot to the football and stuff. We go for, little short breaks and holidays and stuff like that. Walking the dog is probably one of my best times, because you're out and about. You're out, you can open your mind to the outdoors. You're focusing on your dog, but you're not thinking, oh, work. It's more focusing on it. It gives me the time not to focus about work and to focus on her.
And you mentioned diet earlier as well.
Yes, very much so. We had this conversation earlier, didn't we, about me and my sugar. I used to have a lot of sugar in my diet. I was 15.5 stone, and if I told you what I ate, I think you would physically be sick. So I won't go into that details, but I ate a lot of sugar. And I just thought, because I was going through the menopause, I just assumed it was just menopause related, that my mood was 1 minute high, 1 minute low. And then I chose to make a difference. And a friend of mine said, right, let's cut sugar out of your diet. So I literally went cold turkey overnight, because I was drinking 3 litres of flavoured water a day. So I then worked out why my sugar levels were spiking so much. So now I don't have added sugar in my diet, and I'm a lot more level-headed. I'm now plateaued up to a point. I've lost 3.5, nearly 4 stone in weight. I drink 2 litres, maybe 2.5 litres of water a day. I eat fruit and veg, not so much fruit because it's got sugar in it. But I lead a lot more of a healthier life now than I've ever done. And it has an impact on my mindset so much more.
It's fascinating how much it can impact. And you were saying that how, if you slip up for a couple of days, you notice it mentally.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Last week I noticed it. And that was from, all right, yes, some of the food was healthy, but some of it wasn't. And my mindset absolutely nosedived because of it.
Mm-hmm. So if someone wants to become more involved in mental health advocacy or seek support, what are the first steps that they should take? Right.
Well, the first thing I would say is give it the 2 weeks. I think at least just in case if you're just going through a bit of a phase or something. And then if you find that you're not and you want to speak to somebody, as I said, I offer a 90-minute therapy session. There's no contract to sign. There's no commitment to that. You never have to see me after that again if you don't want to. So there is one opportunity. Number 2, speak to a friend, speak to a member of the family, offload to somebody, talk to somebody, because the thoughts and emotions that you have in your head are only going to spiral more and more and more because all you're doing is feeding them because you're focusing on them in your subconscious all the time. So go and speak to somebody.
Thank you. And coming on to the question from our previous guest, Jason Newbury, he said, is there one thing that everyone could do in order to live their best life? So what is it? I know what you're going to say because we've been talking about it for a while, but I'd like to
go and talk to somebody.
We can't say it enough, can we?
No.
Just talk.
Yeah, absolutely. It costs nothing to talk to somebody. Even if you talk to a member of the family and they tell you what you want to hear, at least you've physically offloaded it from yourself out and you've actually verbalized it. Because sometimes the thoughts and emotions you have in your head are not the ones that you say when you talk. So when you actually verbalize it and say, I am feeling this, it makes it real.
I think it's also our brains need that, isn't it? I don't know how many kids have come up to their parents with homework and asked a question and then gone, I've just figured out the answer. Mm. And I think our brains need that sometimes, don't they? Just to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. They just need to just say whatever it is that they want to say.
So for listeners who are interested and maybe can't take you up on your offer, what other resources or sources of information would you recommend if they're interested?
Right. They can contact me on my website, which is rmjwellbeing.com. They can email me, rita@rmjwellbeing.com. I'm part of the Eastbourne Chamber of Commerce, so they can obviously get through me through that way if they want to. However, the website is probably the best first port of call, really. Yeah, just give me a call and just, it's quite user friendly, so they can literally just go on there and just book their therapy session.
And are there any other books or websites that you recommend for people?
Any self-help books will be good. As I said, even things like a relaxation tape. If you're finding you're not sleeping well at night and you feel that, you're feeling anxious, relaxation, yoga, meditation. You know what? There's so many things out there. You can try so much, and with Google, you've got absolutely everything. If you're, I always say, try something. If it doesn't work for you, try something else. People will say, "Oh, no, I don't think a relaxation tape will work with me." How do you know that until you've tried it? If you try it and it doesn't work for you, you can tick that off the list and say, "Right, that's not working for me. I'll try another method." So there's always something else out there that you can try.
Thank you. I'm hearing another take-home theme as well, actually, isn't it? Is that there's always something that can be done.
Yes, absolutely there is.
So in our next podcast, we've got one of the team from WOLO, which stands for We Only Live Once. It's an amazing charity to support people and families with cancer. And they're going to talk about how it affects the families and how we can help families. What question would you like to ask them?
I would like to ask, from a mental health capacity, what is the most impactful thing that they go through when they're diagnosed with cancer?
Thank you. I'll be sure to ask them because I suspect there's a lot around how the news can be broken to them almost and in the lead up to that. So I play a pivotal role. So thank you for your question and I'll pose it to them. Well, thanks for spending some time with me today to talk about what you do.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to the Health and Wellbeing podcast about the importance and awareness of mental health with Reeta Minhas-Judd and me, Dr Nick Harvey. For more information and resources, check out our website, sdhc.org.uk. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please email us at sdhc.feedback@nhs.net. Tune in to our next episode, where we'll be speaking with Justin Wright about cancer, its impact on families and how we can support them. Please take a moment to subscribe to help support us in supporting others with their health and well-being.